bro. Monty Williams is living my dream. The man's getting paid money to not work. Like people are just throwing him money. Just, hey, bro, don't come back into the office, bro. We good. We don't need you no more. But he's still getting like $65 million. Like, it's amazing. So if you didn't know, you probably didn't, because you probably have better things to do on Juneteenth than look at NBA news. But Monty Williams got fired today. And it's not too surprising, but it kind of is, given how much money he was getting paid to be the Pistons head coach. I mean, I remember when he signed that deal, everybody was like, oh my goodness. Like, I think when Monty Williams signed that deal to become a Pistons head coach, he kind of set the barometer for how much NBA coaches should be paid. I mean, if you look at every contract after him, everybody's either getting paid the same amount as him or more than him, because a lot of coaches are just like, look what he's getting. I need that. And it's understandable. And I mean, it makes sense why he got fired, because we all know this year for the Pistons was absolutely terrible. And I mean, it brings the question is, like, who's at fault? Why did this go so wrong so fast? And how was it just so bad? And I don't really put none of the blame on the players. I'm kind of going to get to that in a second. But I think the main people who's at fault is just everybody. Everybody in that front office. Monty Williams himself, mainly because it's like, I think you can kind of tell before he got this Pistons job that Monty Williams didn't really want to coach anymore or for the foreseeable future. But it's like when a team comes knocking at your door with this kind of bread, it's kind of hard to say no. Knowing in the back of your mind, it's like, even if I get fired, they still got to pay me this money. So it really don't matter how this go. So it's understandable why he said, all right, fine, I'll coach this team, even though I personally don't think he really wanted to. You can kind of see that throughout the season. I mean, there is no excuse for this team to be as bad as it was. I mean, they lost 28 straight games. And me personally, I think it's like hard to lose that many games in the NBA, because it's like you couldn't get one. You couldn't win 2 out of 28 games. You couldn't win a random game you're not supposed to win. You know, maybe getting a really good team off a back-to-back and they're resting both their stars. You can't get an easy dub like that. Like, come on. It's not even just because of that. It's like, this team is talented. Like, this team has pieces. You have a superstar in Cade Cunningham. I mean, you got nice young pieces like Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson. I'm pretty sure it's Asar. I always get Amin and Asar mixed up. You have Asar, Isaiah Stewart, who you gave a nice little deal to. Jalen Duran, who may not have had that good of a sophomore season, but I still feel like he's a very, very talented player. You have a guy like Marcus Sasser, who was someone you found late in the draft, and he's been a nice little spark plug off your bench and a nice guard that could slide in and play with Cade Cunningham at times. Like, this team has a lot of talent, so there's no excuse from his perspective as to why they were that bad. I'm not sitting up here saying they should have been a playoff or even a play-in team, but like 28 straight games is kind of insane. And then it's also on the front office, because it's like name chasing. You just went out there and signed the biggest name out there, which was Monty Williams, expecting a good result and not looking at the fact that that man probably didn't really want to coach. He didn't maybe actually hear what he would do, like how he would use these players, what he would implement to this team. And I think that's a lot of problems that we see now in the NBA, with a lot of franchises name chasing, just going after the names, not really looking at who they're bringing in. That happens when it comes to head coaches. That happens when it comes to just roster moves in general. A lot of front offices just looking at the names, not really looking at what's behind the names, what's coming with the names, and even if they're even still good. I'm not sitting here saying that I don't think Monty Williams is a good coach. I think he is. I just don't think his mind really was in it. And when your mind really isn't in something, it shows. And it really showed at a lot of points in the season for the Detroit Pistons. Now, I really do like them firing him, because one, I just like when organizations can readily admit that they made a mistake and go out there and change it. A lot of organizations across all sports will make a mistake, but instead of admitting it, they will sit there and say, nah, we didn't. We're going to try this again. We're going to try this again. Instead of just doing the obvious thing, which is get rid of the guy that they should have got rid of. Like, it makes sense why they fired Monty Williams. And also, they did kind of fire him because they also fired the general manager that brought him in, Troy Weaver. And now they got a new general manager, a guy whose name I cannot say. I really can't. I probably could if I really tried to, but, you know, laziness. And so I like when they admit that they made a mistake. And also, I think this front office, this new regime, this new general manager realizes that the clock's ticking. The clock is ticking because Cade Cunningham's contract extension is coming up. And while there's no doubt in my mind that that Cade Cunningham is gonna sign his extension, like he's going to do that because they're going to be able to offer him a lot more money than anybody else. I mean, I think he's going to get as much money as humanly possible. And I think they realize he's the type of player that you got to keep happy. Mainly, number one is because he's your franchise player. He's your superstar. He is the guy that you're looking to build around. And number two, his first 3 seasons with the Detroit Pistons has just been terrible. Like, you can kind of see it on this man's face sometimes. Like, he looks miserable. And they know that they need to keep him happy because, I mean, while I could see them still finding some type of success if they trade him away, it'll be a lot harder starting from scratch all over again without a star player. And the one thing you've seen a lot of Pistons fans complain about these last few years is not getting the #1 overall pick. You got it. You got Cade. You really don't necessarily need another one of those. You have your star. You just have to build around him. I think that's what the front office is realizing they need to do, and they know they're on the ticking clock. They got to get this man and make this man happy as soon as possible. And also, I just think the general public does not understand how good of a basketball player Cade Cunningham is. And I'm not blaming them because, one, why would you watch Pistons games? Like, other than diehard Pistons fans and real hoop heads, why are you watching the Pistons play basketball? Like, I generally don't blame you. There's really has been no good reason to watch them other than Cade Cunningham. And in his first 3 years, he's been playing really, really well. I mean, every year since his rookie year, he has gone up in points and assists. And that's with the team really getting worse at points. I mean, last year, he averaged damn near 8 assists without really much shooting around him, without much help from the coaching staff of putting the best lineups on the floor. And he averaged 8 assists and around 22 points. And I think like 5 or 6 rebounds. I mean, Cade Cunningham is the type of player at his peak is a guy that could go out there and get you a double-double while being a monster defensively. It's very rare you get a 6'6" athletic lead guard that I believe can be your best player or at the very least a top 2 player on a really, really good team. Like, it's hard to find players like Cade Cunningham, so you have to make him happy. That's also why I've seen a lot of media outlets, workshopping trades for Cade, and I think if you're the Pistons, you do everything in your power not to trade Cade. You only trade Cade when Cade Cunningham says, I want to go. Like, you don't. Like, I saw people mock up trades for him to the Jazz or to like a mixture of other teams, and it's like, nah. You keep a guy like Cade. You don't get talent like that often, especially if you're Detroit and you've been looking for that guy for so long. I mean, when was the last time the Detroit Pistons had a franchise player? If you really think about it, even when they were winning championships and going to Eastern Conference Finals and the finals back in like the early 2000s when they were beating the Lakers, did they really have a franchise player? No, that was just a really, really good basketball team. And so even if you go back to the 90s, I mean, Isaiah Thomas, franchise player, top 5 point guard all time. But it's like, it's rare. You have to keep him. You have to keep him happy. And the main way to keep him happy, well, the first thing you can do is just go out there and sign a good head coach. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know all the possible candidates they could sign, because in all honesty, I do know them, but I really like when organizations pick a new and fresh name rather than recycle the same 5 to 10 head coaches we always see coach all these teams. Like, I understand we're going with a proven name, but sometimes you got to go out there and really look and really find somebody that may not have had the opportunity yet, but may have the type of resume that could lead to him being your head coach. Like, really going out there and interviewing people. Now, I understand that this name I'm about to bring up would probably not coach the Detroit Pistons. It's JJ Redick. And I bring up JJ Redick's name because a coach like that or a candidate like that is someone who I would really want to see coach a team like the Pistons. I know as of right now, it's looking like JJ Redick is going to be the Lakers head coach. I mean, it's all pointing to that given how the Lakers really haven't been trying with anybody else other than maybe James Borrego. And it's like, while I have faith that JJ Redick can one day be a pretty good coach, a guy with no coaching experience shouldn't walk into a position where it's like you have to win right away. It's best for a young first-time head coach, first-time coach in general, to land with the team that he can grow with. On a team like the Pistons, JJ Redick can grow with them. And also, their new general manager is also a Duke alum, so I think if he could, I think he wouldn't mind going out there and get a fellow, Duke former. What do former Duke people call themselves? Like a fellow Blue Devil, getting a fellow Blue Devil. And it's like, it makes more sense for a young coach to go to a young team that he can grow with, rather than go to a team where your expectations are to win right away. You cannot afford setbacks and bumps in the road and having a learning curve. With a team like the Pistons, you can kind of afford to have a learning curve. Like, you can afford to have, a few games slid where you're trying to like really understand how to do your job in the first place, given a guy like JJ Redick has never been a coach at any level. So I expect wherever he goes, if it's the Lakers, there's going to be an adjustment period. And I don't know how happy the Lakers will be with that, given in their minds, they're trying to win as soon as possible, given the age of LeBron James. That's why I think a place like Detroit will be really good for him. Also, a place like Charlotte, like that, I think that's really the main place. But yeah, like, I would love to see them go after a guy like that, go after a young guy that really has never been a head coach, but has a good amount of coaching experience. I know that doesn't mean JJ Redick, but it would be cool. It's not going to happen. Now, I do believe this is a very big offseason for the Detroit Pistons, because I know this may sound crazy to say for a team that lost 28 straight games last year. They're not as far as people think. They're not as far as the general, audience believes this team is. I mean, I know I'm not the only person that remembers like 5 or 10 games into the season when the Pistons were looking pretty good. We're talking about them as a fringe playoff team. Like, the Pistons have a good amount of talent. They have a lot of young talent, and they have a young budding superstar. Like, I feel like if they make the right moves this offseason, they can mess around and be in a really good position next year as being one of those teams that we look at and say, wow, they're young, they're competitive, and the future is bright. Because one, they have the 5th pick in this year's draft, and they have a lot of cap space. And I understand this is not a free agency class that's littered with stars, but they don't need stars. They just need really, really good complementary pieces and role players and a veteran presence. And the one thing I really want this team to go out there and kind of add this offseason is really, I think, more wing depth and shooting. Like I said, Cade averaged 7.5 assists last year with subpar shooting around him. Imagine if he had better shooting around him. Imagine if this offense could really expand and be easier for Cade, because I could see Cade being a 25 plus per game scorer. He is that good of a scorer, but it's really hard at times when the lanes are clogged and you got 2-3 people looking at you every time you touch the basketball. Give him weapons, give him something to work with. I can see them maybe drafting a guy like a Reed Shepherd. Even though Reed Shepherd is a guard, he's a 6'2 guard, that I know a lot of people be like, but they already have enough guards. When you have a guy like Cade Cunningham, who is 6'6" and very versatile, you can run the risk of going out there and getting more guards because of how versatile he is. Like, Cade can guard 1 through 3 if need be. And also a guy like Dalton Connect, because he is just, walking bucket. And even the guy I like in Matas Buzeles. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. And then you look at free agency and it's like, I know this player's had a bad reputation over the past few years, but a guy like Tobias Harris wouldn't be too bad. I mean, he could provide some shooting, some extra versatility, and a veteran presence. And also, I think a guy like Tobias Harris, the reason why he looks so terrible is because of how much money he was getting paid. But if he's getting paid like 20 mil a year, his production doesn't look that bad. Then also like a guy like a KCP, given they have the money to offer him to really swindle him away from the Denver Nuggets. Then like Kelly Oubre, a nice little scoring wing. Buddy Hield adds more shooting. Like, I believe if they make the right moves this offseason, we're going to be talking about the Pistons a lot differently next year. Because I already like the little core they have right now. I really like Cade, as I kind of talked about. Asar is a guy that I really, really like. I didn't like him coming out because I was very skeptical of the OTE guys, but he is just one of those players that does a lot of things really well. He may shoot the ball terribly, but he defends. He plays basketball the right way. He makes the right passes. He's a playmaker, and he's actually a really, really good and he's a really good rebounder. Like, his versatility is off the charts. I do like Isaiah Stewart, given he's just a really nice power forward to have, can stretch the floor, can defend. Like I said, I've always been a really big fan of Jalen Duren, even though he had a down sophomore year. A lot of that I don't kind of blame on him. It's really just the situation, and it's the fact they were really trying to play James Wiseman minutes, which I don't have a problem with, but it's like, let's prioritize our top 10 pick in Jalen Duren, who is very, very talented. Like, I remember his rookie year, he was having an insane year, and he was one of the youngest players in the league, going out there and having 20 games. And there's like Jaden Ivey. I know he's had like a rocky, up and down stretch since he's really into the league, but he's a guy that I could see like Jalen Green, where it may take him like a little bit while to really get his footing and show how good of a scorer he can be. So, like I said, I really like this young core, and if they can add the right pieces around them and get the coaching higher right, I feel like we're going to talk about the Pistons a lot differently next year. This is just a really big offseason for them. And, you know, while I never want to see a black man get fired, I don't mind if he get fired if he's making $100 million not to do nothing. It don't sound too bad for me. He living my dream.